Generation based on Choice.com, the Republican candidate for governor.
Have sexual relations with
I realize that this is something he is
We're not going to be able to solve our problems if we get distracted by sideshows and carnival barkers.
One Republican, one Democrat, and you discuss the issues that matter in today's local, state, national, and global politics. Hosted by Steve Hickson with co-hosts John Stanberry and Franklin Chansey. This is Backfire.
Hey, welcome to another edition of Backfire, everybody. We're back. We've had a big 4th. The fireworks are gone. Everything's ready.
Oh, there are always more fireworks. We live in Cleveland.
Like they'll be this morning.
We have Mr. John Stanberry in the building this morning, Franklin Chansey, and we've got some guests this morning. We've got William Ogle, who was has been a page this summer.
Good morning.
Also, we have Peggy Sue Denham with us this morning.
Good morning.
Peggy Sue might be a new addition. I kind of like the way she talks. Let's hear a little Peggy Sue.
Well, so we got a theme song, surely.
Surely you got a theme song queued up for me, right?
That's right. We've already got it playing here, Peggy Sue.
All right.
Anyway, I just don't know where to start. It's been such a bad week for the Democrats, and the last 2 weeks, actually. I thought I'd let you start off this morning.
Try to look at the positive of these things. Anytime it's been a bad week for the Democrats, it's been a great week for average Americans.
Anyway, I thought I'd let you just start off this morning. What would you like to talk about this morning, Franklin?
I like fresh news.
Okay, let's have
so this is only 10 minutes off the wire here.
Mm-hmm.
This morning, at the start of the NATO summit this morning, the president said, and I quote,
he kicked somebody's butt already this morning, I heard.
Germany is totally controlled by Russia and is captive to them. And then he said that the UK is in turmoil and it will be an easier visit with Putin. Okay.
Well, do you think there's something wrong with what he said?
Mostly everything.
What do you think about? I know this is a good broad statement. Let's talk about tariffs, and let's get that over with. John Fleshman came and visited the Rotary Club the other day and was talking about tariffs in Tennessee. Why don't you go ahead and open it up and let's talk about what he's talking about?
Well, we said that a week or two ago when we talked about tariffs. I don't think Trump is really interested in the tariffs. I think he's interested in the end game, which is a zero tariff world. And I think this is all part of the negotiation process.
I agree.
What about you?
While I was on the Senate floor,
right.
I believe it was Senator Alexander actually came out and spoke about tariffs and how tariffs, by and large, are very negative for Tennessee, especially on steel and aluminum, like they're on right now, because we are such an automotive state. We produce so many, parts for automotives,
Mm-hmm.
that a large part of our industry is centered around, having these materials available cheaply and that they'll have to cut back. I believe that is what he said. And that, us locally, that's going to hurt us. But I do think what John said is right, that this is a temporary measure to gain some leverage to then lower the tariffs.
He's correcting the problem.
Yes, he's taken what's the problem now, which we have a trade deficit. Trade deficits are not necessarily bad, because you have a trade deficit with your grocery store because you're not they're not paying you.
They don't give you enough coupons either. Do
exactly. Maybe you can even that out. Maybe put a couple of tariffs on your grocery store, and that might make a little bit more sense. Maybe, I don't know. But that definitely is. I think that's where we're headed. Is lower tariffs, or maybe eventually the abolition of those tariffs on those goods.
All right, Franklin, go ahead. What about it?
Well, in general, I agree that the tariffs are a bad thing. I don't understand the strategy of offending every ally we have and then hoping they'll support us in our tariff battle with China. Doesn't make any sense.
Franklin, have you ever sued anybody for failure to fulfill a contract?
I guess I have, John.
Well, I think what we're doing right now is we're telling NATO you're failing to fulfill your contract.
Well, we're starting a tariff war with them also.
All right, look,
let's not talk about NATO.
Germany, for example, well, actually all of NATO, Franklin. Do you know how their troops, they task so many troops to NATO. Do you know how they get their troops to a combat zone?
Probably on U.S. air transport.
Do you know why?
Imagine.
they actually don't have enough military spending to be able to transport their own soldiers, Franklin.
And there's actually already a deal in place requiring them to meet certain targets by 2025.
There's been a deal in place
correct?
since we signed the papers of NATO, and they've never met their obligations. Matter of fact, and this, you want bipartisanship, this goes back. First Bush tried to get them to meet it. Clinton tried to get them to meet it. Second Bush tried to get them to meet it. Obama has criticized them. Trump basically is saying, look, folks, you expect us to uphold our end of the bargain. You uphold your end.
Did they uphold their end
in
when...
2014, only 3 countries met their obligation.
That's
and
correct.
in 2018, 8 are now meeting their obligation to NATO.
So if the United States hired you to sue them, would you take the case?
Do what?
If the United States hired you to sue them for breach of contract, would you take that case?
Well, I would generally represent the United States, John. I don't think the president's actually doing that today.
I think he is. I think he's tired of the United States always being the loser in these deals.
Were we the loser when the NATO allies on their own invoked Article 5 of the NATO Charter and supported us when we got attacked on 9/11? They didn't get attacked
Look,
that
Franklin,
day. We
I'm
did.
glad they did that, and that was a nice symbolic effect, but they'd be speaking German all through Europe right
guess
now
what
if
else?
we hadn't saved their butts.
Apparently, we're all going to be speaking Russian if we continue down this path.
We're going to speak Russian if they don't learn to defend themselves.
Here's what I figured out's going to happen. The tariffs were put in place because of Russia. Am I right?
No.
No, I think they were. I'm not the tariffs. I'm sorry. I'm getting my mind mixed up this morning. NATO was put in place because of Russia.
Sure.
Am I right? What's going to happen is he's going over there. He's going to tell them what he thinks about everything and try to get them turned around. Then he's going to meet with Putin. They're going to be buddies. And he's going to go back and tell NATO, hey, we don't need NATO anymore. Let's just all save the money. A Hickson prediction.
Well, okay.
Okay, all right.
I'm not sure I agree with that. But,
So Putin will be free to expand even further.
No, actually what's going to happen here, Franklin, is the old line European allies in NATO are not doing enough to defend the Baltic state new additions to NATO. The Baltic state people agree with Trump because they don't see Europe, if not for America, they'd be defenseless against Putin. So actually what happens is if he goes over there and he aggravates the old line Europeans and they begrudgingly bump up their defense spending because of his bellicose statements, then that actually sends a message to Russia that we are going to actually do what we have to do, and the Baltic states actually win in that scenario.
The combined forces of the NATO allies and the United States are 20 times larger than Russia.
Because of the
Are you
United
kidding
States
me?
for the bulk of it.
Either way,
And
are you
frankly,
really
here's a great
saying
example.
them not bumping up their spending 4 or 5% is what's encouraging Putin?
No, I'll tell you what's encouraging
It's
people.
nonsense.
The reason they're spending so much on social programs is because they don't have to spend money on their military because we subsidize them. Here's
or
another one
also
for you.
because they had even a far deeper recession than we even
Franklin,
had.
the old line states are the ones that forced Obama in his weakness to cut the contract to put missile defense in Poland at Russia's request. So the only people that have really damaged strategic security in Eastern Europe was Obama caving into Russian requests to cancel a program that Bush had already towed the line
Fine,
on.
John, put the missiles in Ukraine then.
Well,
What's the problem?
I think
If that's
Trump,
your answer.
I think if Trump wasn't having to spend so much on transport vehicles because the rest of Europe wasn't paying their fair share, we'd have money for more of the missile
If your
defense.
answer is that simple, what are we even arguing about? Why is he meeting with Putin or anybody?
I'm glad you
Just
agree
go
that
put
Obama
the
dropped
missiles
the ball.
there.
Thank
If that's
you very
all
much.
it takes.
Anyway, I'm going to say this just to get your attention again, Frank, because I've said it the last 3 weeks and it makes you mad. I think Trump's doing such a great
I know
job.
you do.
Trump train.
I know you do. I know you do.
Anybody in this room think Trump's doing a bad job?
No.
As you watch everything that's provided stability and growth for this country for 50 years be torn down around you.
You mean like the economy growing at 4.1% the last quarter? You mean like Hispanic unemployment being at record lows, actually breaking the previous record low that he set? Black unemployment being at record lows? You mean all of that, Franklin?
Absolutely that.
You mean the stock market surging 5,000 points last year?
5,000 last year.
Since his election.
Continuing a 6-year trend. Started under who?
Oh.
You mean the guy that failed to meet 3% GDP growth one time in 2 terms? Even Jimmy Carter did that?
Let's see if the Trump expansion lasts 6 years.
I know you and Bill Maher and your other liberal buddies hope that the economy tanks so that you can be reelected. But most of us hope for good results, Franklin.
I've been hoping for good results ever since he got elected. I'm still waiting to see them.
We've gotten it. The economy has grown. People have gotten jobs.
Yeah.
I'm exhausted from all the women.
Let me change the subject. Let me change the subject.
Well, you need to get in better shape then, because it's really not hard to
I'm
not be
working on
exhausted
it.
right now.
I'm working on it. I'm going to make it another 6 years.
I just want to ask this next question. Does anybody think there's been any Russian collusion?
No.
William, you want to try this?
I'll try. So I think that Russia may have sponsored some advertisements or something like that to sway voters, but they're not going into ballot boxes and casting votes. That's,
They didn't do anything special for Trump, or did they? Did they try to get Trump elected?
I think that they worked on both sides. I think there's evidence that on both sides of the election, maybe it was 60-40, and, maybe it was 50-50. We're not really sure. I think this whole Mueller investigation being drug out as far as it has is really just, more obstructionism from the other side of the aisle.
The Republican chairman of the Senate committee investigating this week said, and I quote, "They clearly attempted to influence our election and clearly attempted to influence it in favor of Donald Trump." That's the Republican chairman.
Because they thought he was going to lose, Franklin. The point here is
the Republican
Franklin,
chairman,
no one's
John.
arguing about what the Russians did. Your whole investigation is predicated on the idea that there was collusion. And there is absolutely no evidence of collusion.
That's what you say it's predicated on.
No, you people did. That's what you claimed.
That's what the whole
You said
investigation was about.
Collusion.
Well, John, there is evidence that various people in the Trump campaign may have done that.
Now, wait a minute.
You seem to limit the
evidence
concept to whether Donald Trump personally did this, as if he's the only member of the campaign.
That doesn't matter to you.
Of course it matters. And you know what else? The president ought to be demanding that the investigation continue to prove his innocence.
Wait a minute. So
but no.
You're saying that political operatives may have, on their own, colluded and
well,
met
if
with
the
the Russians.
political operatives you're talking about happen to be your children and son-in-law, then yes.
Oh, no. I'm talking about the Hillary Clinton operatives that met with a Soviet spy, paid for a dossier, and then used it and filtered it into the U.S. government and the U.S. media.
How did a British spy get to be a Soviet spy?
Because he cooperated
I think
with
that's a little
Soviet
factually
He
questionable,
cooperated
John.
with Soviet intelligence officials, Franklin. The only collusion we've proven is Hillary's collusion.
You don't know what they've proven.
Well, how about Lisa?
Mueller's not giving you a press conference every
and
week.
the Hillary Clinton campaign paid foreign nationals to meet with Russian operatives for information.
The same guy that the Republican National Committee had paid, which you conveniently
But
leave out
no,
every
we
time.
didn't pay him to meet with the Russians. The
They
Democrats
paid him
no.
to get the same
We-
information.
No, we did not.
Yes, you
no,
did.
Franklin, you do
This
that
is
every
the problem,
time. This
John.
is when you all start
have
lying
abandoned
effectively.
Any sense
Franklin,
of objectivity.
did the Republicans have anything to do with them when they were working on the dossier? Yes or no?
That makes no sense. It
Answer the
started
question,
under them.
Franklin. Answer
It
the question.
started under the Republicans.
No, the dossier did not. The dossier did not start under the Republicans.
John, that is revisionist
No,
nonsense.
it's not, Franklin. That's actually admitted history by Dianne Feinstein.
Okay.
Well, did Trump have any collusion with Russia?
Who knows? We'll find out.
Absolutely.
How long will it take for us to find out?
A lot longer, a lot shorter than it took to find out whether there was a phony land deal in Arkansas 10
Which
years
there was.
before Clinton was president.
Which there was.
Where's Lisa Page? She could tell us.
Oh, she's now decided
hiding.
she's not cooperating.
That's right.
She needs more time.
This is a perfect example. The guys you talk about asked them to release the transcript of his testimony publicly. And y'all refused.
Say that again.
Page went and testified before Congress. He asked it to be public. They refused. The Republicans refused for him to testify in front of people.
Prosecutors regularly keep things like that back so the bad guys can't coordinate their stories.
There you go. You guys want the investigation over, but you don't want any actual investigation.
Are you actually defending Strzok and Page?
No, not at all. I'm the guy all along who's told you when you were raving like a madman for years and years and years about Obama and about Clinton, I said, investigate them.
What if they
if they committed a crime, prosecute them. I'm not scared of the truth.
What if they... is that collusion is not a crime. I mean, the only crime that you could
It's a crime against democracy.
Actually, collusion, he's right, is no crime. There's no crime in collusion.
You're absolutely right.
It never happened, but even if it did happen, it's not a crime, Franklin.
It's not a crime
then why are
against
we
the justice system.
The public's time?
You don't think that we ought to know what our elected leaders are doing with foreign governments?
Actually, I'd like to know why the Obama administration issued a stand-down order to the Justice Department people who are actually trying to break up the cyber meddling of Russia.
Why do you think that happened?
I know what the answer is. I think it's something you can criticize.
What?
Well, the answer is no matter what they did, they would be criticized. If they told them to investigate it, you guys would have said,
there is no Republican ever that if they had actually been attacking the Russians would have criticized that.
If the evidence was that the Russians were trying to favor Trump, you would have exactly said that.
We would not.
And I look at the evidence here today. You guys are wetting your pants trying to defend him for what was going on with the Russians.
We're not trying to defend him. We're trying to get a crazy investigation that started from lies. That started from a bunch of liberal lies.
He's not just investigating collusion. He's investigating the interference, too.
Let's talk about
He's investigating 12-year-old charges of money laundering.
Indicted.
For nothing. Franklin, stuff we already
Where are they?
about.
You think they'll ever be in a trial?
So what?
They made that up, too. That's a bunch of crap.
That was a PR
And this is the other part. This guy who served his country honorably, who was wounded in combat, who's had a perfectly honorable life that everybody says was a wonderful person, including Republicans,
now we're going off
suddenly think he's this moron who's just out trying to get somebody.
Like the Navy officer who took a picture in the sub and served a year in prison, which was...
That's a nice diversion from what I just said, John. But tell me what the moral problem is with Robert Mueller.
The moral problem with Mueller is that there is no collusion. If you wanted to be investigating the Russians and their activities, that would be fine, but there is no collusion. Dianne Feinstein has admitted there's no collusion. Adam Schiff actually said, I don't think there's any collusion.
Then what are you so scared of?
I'm not scared. It's a waste of time, and it distracts the
waste of taxpayer money.
And it distracts from our president. The President of the United States, who's actually doing more than any president I've ever seen.
The new Supreme Court nominee, who actually was on Ken Starr's committee, he actually was the guy investigating Monica Lewinsky, has actually, in retrospect, looked back and said, I don't think it was appropriate what we did because it distracted Clinton from the last 2 years of his job. So there's a partisan who was doing this very same job against a Democrat who says, I was wrong.
Yeah, okay.
Franklin, how do you think we're going to get out of this investigation? How do you think it's going to end?
I think it's going to end with several indictments. I think it's going to end with a report. I think it's perhaps we'll see.
Money laundering from 12 years ago.
Not a single one. You'll have some money laundering from things that have nothing to do with the campaign, which you already have. By the way, Franklin, you're an advocate.
You guys were all for that during the Whitewater thing,
You're an
right?
advocate for your
You were for that.
Always. Tell me why Paul Manafort is in 23-hour-a-day solitary confinement.
For witness tampering.
What's he been convicted of?
He's there for
Has
witness
he been
tampering.
convicted of a crime?
No, his bail.
So a man is in solitary confinement 23 hours a day, and he's not been convicted of a single crime.
That's
so
right.
that's
and Peter
American
Strzok
justice
was
for
on the
you?
payroll.
That's how American justice should work.
if you violate the terms of your bail, which he did, then yes, that's how it works.
Why did they
and by the way, that's great, John, that you're all upset about this.
No, I don't
it
like
happens to
Manafort.
people
I don't
every
like
day.
people- I don't
and
like
you
me
never
people-
say a word about
I don't
that.
like people being put in jail when they've not committed a crime.
Well, how do you know that?
Well,
Because he's not been convicted of any crime, Franklin.
he hadn't murdered anybody.
It's a
What
white
would you
collar
be in
crime.
solitary?
Oh, well, that's just
Solitary
all. That's.
confinement about.
I'm sorry. Let's go apologize to him. Let's apologize to
Well,
him.
Franklin, I'm thinking if the
After
local
being
DA if
being
the
told
local DA took
after
one of
being
your
told
clients and locked
specifically
him
not to
away-
do something by a federal court, and he did it anyway.
Well, Franklin,
And then he
stuff like
lost his
that
bail.
happens. Let me say, I'm not defending what he did at all, but
I'm
here's the
sorry
point,
he
Franklin.
doesn't get to stay in the mansion
Do
they let him stay
Franklin,
in for the first 5
so
months.
now you're into the typical Democrat
No.
envy stuff. So
no,
he deserves
the
it
idea
because
that you
he's been
feel sorry
successful.
for this
That's
person
it.
who
Oh,
created
by the
their
way,
own
folks, that's
fate
how this
is
works.
ridiculous.
If you work hard in America and you become successful, the Democrats hate you.
Actually, he didn't do much work in America. Most of his work was in Russia and the Ukraine. But
I thought y'all
I'm
were
just
all
quibbling.
globalists.
I'm just quibbling there.
Well,
As you abandon yet another long-standing principle.
Franklin, I don't like Manafort at all. I wouldn't have hired him. But here's my
But
point.
he's associated with Trump, so
here's
he's
my
great
point,
now.
Franklin. He could easily, for example, they have people who have been arrested for child pornography. They don't put them in solitary confinement. They restrict their access to the internet. They restrict their access to computers. They put ankle monitors on them. The fact that they put Paul Manafort in a white-collar crime in a 23-hour-a-day solitary confinement
How about the way they-
shows, you talk about abandoning principles, where's the ACLU on his behalf?
What
Where
about-
are all your good liberals on his behalf?
what about the way they entered his house?
Again, another violation. Where was the ACLU? Matter of fact, Alan Dershowitz, an ACLU lion, says that your side has shown their hypocrisy and that the ACLU has completely sold out their principles.
Well, I predict that he's actually being held in solitary for his own safety.
He is, but he shouldn't have been put in prison. He should have been restricted.
He was
Should have been
restricted.
monitored.
You don't
No, he
understand that
wasn't,
happened,
Franklin.
don't
He
you?
wasn't restricted. and
Yes, he
monitored.
was.
Well, they could have done more. They do it all the time, Franklin. They don't routinely do this. They almost never do what they're doing to him.
Everybody calm down just a little bit.
Actually, this is calmer than usual, Steve. It really is.
That's because I'm here.
Yes, Peggy.
Actually, and I
Peggy-
do appreciate it. I think I don't.
and John's wife wants me to be sure to
worried
help
about
him
my
with
blood pressure.
his blood pressure. His blood pressure's been going through the roof lately, right?
Well, I can understand why it would be.
So let's just talk very nice to each
Nicely.
other. Let's just be very.
You need to put in a punching bag between these gentlemen.
So let me ask this question: what is there that we can't make in the United States?
What is there that we can't
products
make?
that we can't make in the United States? There's some minerals that we can't get.
Liberal with integrity.
Oh, that was good.
But if we just started manufacturing everything that we need in the United States, I mean, what would stop us? We don't need anything from any other countries except maybe a couple of minerals.
Well, the short answer to that question
Yeah.
is you couldn't make the. Let's use the objective that was thrown out here a minute ago that Trump wants a no tariff world, which I don't believe for 1 minute, but assume that's
In
the
other
case.
words, if we made
Assume
everything we needed.
No,
Okay.
That would just be free trade.
Oh, okay.
Then the answer is that you've got tons of things here that you could not possibly manufacture as cheaply as they could in less developed countries, and therefore they wouldn't be able to buy any products from us. So we'd be buying everything from them,
Well, I mean,
and that's not going to solve your trade deficit. It's going to inflate it probably.
Let me tell you one thing we probably would have a really hard time manufacturing. We need a nuclear deterrent. And since Hillary and Obama sold our uranium to the Russians, we wouldn't be able to manufacture that.
Also more nonsense, but okay.
Why do you think
That nonsense.
Why do you think they
They
sold?
sold.
First of all,
20% of our uranium to the Russians.
we didn't own the uranium that you're talking about. You're talking about a company out of Canada that owned it, not us.
And
That's
they
number one.
authorized the sale.
That's number one.
to Russia.
Number two, 8 different government agencies reviewed this, and all 8 of them said there was no problem in this
All
whatsoever.
Obama agencies, Franklin. That's the point. The president, the buck stops here.
Probably Peggy.
If he hadn't wanted it to happen, it wouldn't have happened.
Okay.
Well, of course, once.
And the other part of that, is,
Foundation, it had to happen.
as you left out there then, we don't have any shortage of ability to get this material.
So you don't mind selling 20% of our uranium?
We were selling it before.
No.
We were.
It's one thing to sell the uranium, not to sell the mine, Franklin. Golly.
It's okay to sell uranium, just not ads on Facebook.
Okay. I'm sorry you lost me on that one. I didn't get that.
It's a crime. It's a big deal to sell ads on Facebook to Russians. That's what you're upset about, that they influenced our election through ads on Facebook, but it's okay to sell them uranium.
I wouldn't be upset at that. I would be upset over Facebook selling all my personal data so those ads can be...
They did that to Obama.
And I'd be against that too.
Well, were you against it then? Did you come out against it then?
We didn't know about it then. We didn't know about the data mining.
And isn't that convenient?
All right.
I don't know.
I think things got quiet around here, so it's a good time for us to take a little break. So we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson. We'll be right back after this.
You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. WOOP FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
We're here at the Trane Heating and Air Conditioning Testing Facility to see how unstoppable their products really are.
Inside this climate chamber, it's raining incredibly hard on this Trane ECU unit. Clearly, it's hard to stop the train.
Ready for a heating and air unit that's been tested in the harshest environments possible? Stop thinking about the other guys and get a Trane. Call Mechanical Systems today to get your home on the road to comfort. 336-5739.
Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Another SOS, and you're stressing, and that's the time to check in. Check into cash, check in. When you have a cash emergency, you check in. We understand the urgency. Check in to get your loans and more. You gotta check in with your check into cash store. Walk in, call in, click in, go all in. Check into cash in, check into cash. Your one-stop money shop. Check into cash.
Matthews Pool and Spa Company, located in Cleveland, Bradley County for over 45 years. You know them. They're your new swimming pool construction and supply company in Cleveland, Tennessee, now with 4 generations of Matthews to serve you. Matthews Pool and Spa Company, for over 45 years, your swimming pool construction and supply company, spa or hot tub installation and maintenance. Get all of your supplies for your pool or spa right now. That's the new location in the old Quinn Electric Company building behind KFC at 2724 Keith Street in Cleveland. Call Matthews now, 476-4521. You better get your order in now for your new pool construction for this spring and summer. 476-4521. Matthews Pool and Spa Company. Going to jump in. Woo!
If you need a little green, Lending Frog is making deals. He'll lend you cash on any kind of wheels. Borrow just a little, or you can borrow big. Lending Frog is a new financial gig. It's hip to hop into cash. LendingFrog.com is making a splash. Dig it, dig it. Dig it, dig it.
After 135 years, Hardwick Clothes, America's oldest since 1880, has delivered on our commitment to produce the finest navy blazer in America. This limited edition blazer was announced as the style winner in Garden & Guns Made in the South Awards. Crafted in Cleveland, Tennessee, we use premium Italian wool from the Tale Barbaris, custom Bimberg lining, and signature gold buttons. It's available through the finest men's stores or at hardwick.com.
No dealers allowed. Jackson Catnapper, family owned and operated in Cleveland since 1933, offering the best with over 70 styles of recliners, sofas, electronic lift chairs, full living room packages. Call Mike now at 961-7239 because Jackson Catnapper now offers sales to the public
every Saturday. That's right, every Saturday.
From 8 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon. or call Mike at 961-7239, or go see him
Every Saturday
at 1911 King Edward Avenue, just across from the main plant. Jackson Catnapper, family owned and operated in Cleveland since 1933, 961-7239.
No dealers allowed.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson on Whoop FM. Call 423-614-5553 to join in on the conversation. Now, back to Backfire.
All right, we're back, and things have gotten calm in here. I felt like we was beating up on Franklin a little bit, so we're going to calm it down.
I got big, strong shoulders, Steve. It's okay.
I want to say this, Franklin. Steve invited Peggy, which I was thrilled with, but I had invited William, so this was not an attempt in one day to just pound the daylights out of you, okay?
No. In fact, I was impressed to see that you guys had doubled your number of friends.
Well, actually, I invited Peggy to help John because Lisa told me that John needed to keep his blood pressure down.
His blood pressure down?
I'm a calming influence.
Breathe.
We were having a little discussion while we took a break. William Ogle, let's hear a little bit about you.
Well, there's a little bit to tell. I'm an Eagle Scout from Troop 98 in Sweetwater, Tennessee. I'm the founder and president of the Monroe County Teenage Republican Association up there. So, I've got a seat on the executive committee for the county. I lived in Germany for 14 months in 2011, 2012, and the first month of 2013. And I most recently served as a Senate page for Lamar Alexander during the spring semester.
What were you doing in Germany?
Well, my dad is actually a network engineer. He contracts with the military. He's not in the military. So he was stationed in Germany. He started contracting in 2005. He was in Iraq. He did that for a couple of years, decided he wanted to see what Germany was like so that we could move over as a family. So we lived there for a little while, came back after that, and he was in Djibouti, Africa, before he got back to Iraq. He's working on the U.S. Embassy in Iraq right now. So
yeah,
sounds like a great experience.
Yeah, Nick's for staying.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about you. You just finished working as a page, right?
Yes, sir.
Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Well, I was appointed
on the Senate floor.
Yes, I was appointed to be the page for Lamar Alexander. I believe John served as a page for Howard Baker, so he could fill in a couple of gaps that I leave out. It's been a little while since he did it. So I was appointed by Lamar Alexander. I think I got notified in last November. I started on January 18th. And I finished up June 8th, so I served 5 months living in D.C., working in the Capitol building, working on the Senate floor every day. Every day that they were in session, but I was in the Capitol building every weekday throughout that time. So, just working. We set up the chamber, got senators water, got to listen to the speeches, set up lecterns, and if they needed errands run, we did that. Basically being gophers for the U.S. Senate.
Did you see much get done?
Well... I got a lot of people water. I don't know how much of that came to fruition of policy-wise. I think they passed the VA Mission Act while I was there. They passed some Dodd-Frank reform, which I'm sure Franklin's a big fan of. And they passed the budget bill. Really off the top of my head, that's all I can think that they really got done legislatively while I was there.
Then they took a break.
Oh, well, they took several breaks. But... 'tis the nature of politics, isn't it?
Let me say something, because, he and I talked
John, didn't you do something similar? Didn't you work?
I was there for a year.
Not as a page. You actually worked in Lamar Alexander's office, didn't you?
Actually, William sounds to me like he's a little John Stanberry coming up.
I think you're scared, William, at this point. Let me say this, though. I worked there, and he and I have talked a little bit about my experiences and his experiences. And I think it's kind of indicative of a lot of what we've seen. When I was up there, there weren't TV cameras in the Senate chamber. There were TV cameras in the House chamber. They had just added it. And there was a lot of debate about that as to whether that was a good thing or a bad thing. I personally think you can look at his experience and my experience and you can see that it was a bad thing. Because when I was up there, the senators were on the floor a lot. and there was a lot of discussion, there was a lot of debate back and forth, and you actually saw things being hashed out. And the fear at the time about the TVs was you would change the nature of the debate, because everybody would be mugging and speaking for the camera, and you would inject a lot more politics into the process. And I think that's what you've seen. He was telling me that most of the senators, they come on the floor, they make a speech, no one else is on the floor, and then they leave. Mm-hmm. Now, when I was there, they spoke back and forth, they argued back and forth, debates went back and forth, amendments went back and forth.
How do you get anything done that way?
Well, they're not.
Which way?
The way you just...
My way?
No, his way.
Well, I mean, I can speak from experience that not a lot really gets done. I mean, like I said, I listed off, 4 or 5 pieces of legislation that happened in a 5-month window.
What could we do to fix that?
Well, what we could do,
I think you could demand that they remove the TV cameras from the floor.
That's a good start.
Absolutely.
That's possible.
But that's not going to happen.
But the majority of the things that happened while I was there was nominations. And what is unprecedented during the Trump administration is that the Democrats have, forced a cloture to be invoked on every nomination that's gone through. I mean, there's probably 4 or 5 nominations that had to do with senatorial courtesy, go through the process of nomination that didn't have to have cloture on it. And what cloture is limiting debate. That's what cloture means. But basically means you have to have a vote to determine that you're going to be able to then have a vote because you're limiting debate and you have 30 hours of cloture time. So for every nominee, they're waiting 30 hours of in-Senate time they're wasting 30 hours of in-Senate time on one nominee for a circuit court judge on the first district. That's probably somebody who's not going to be that contentious. Even if it's not a contentious person, they're going to make them waste 30 hours of in-Senate time in the floor, and restricts the amount of legislation that can get done because they're having to spend time debating. And I say that with quotation marks because they're not actually debating. You'll have 3 or 4 speakers speak about the guy, for maybe a total of an hour. And then, you've got 29 hours sitting in session where they're not doing anything. You're sitting in quorum call, which if you flip on C-SPAN 2, that's what's going on all the time is nobody's speaking. You get a nice look at the clerks, the presiding officer, and then the pages who are serving at that point. That's the pages of the people who are sitting on the sides of the steps and you can see them on C-SPAN all the time. So if you want to, look, somebody gets to be a page, you want to go see them, just look on C-SPAN 2. My parents recorded a ton of C-SPAN 2 while I was up there. They caught me doing some pretty funny stuff. But I think the way you do that is you just you got to remove obstructionism. And I think that did start with the nomination of Merrick Garland, and where that stopped. That's where the precedent was set. But that was precedent for a Supreme Court nominee. That's not a precedent for the assistant director at the EPA. That's not a precedent for a circuit court judge. That's not a precedent that needs to be gone over forever.
I have been the one on here who said every nominee deserves a hearing and a vote. That's what I've said. That being said, though, when Trump came into office, there were a record number of judicial vacancies at that point. Why? Because they wouldn't confirm any of Obama's. It didn't start with Merrick Garland. It started way before that.
It started with George Bush. Frankly, I'll admit this has been going on a long time, and it goes way back. And there are all kinds of things that need to be reformed here. For example, Chuck Schumer just this week has stated that he thinks it's imperative that this nominee to the Supreme Court announce how he would have ruled on Roe versus Wade. Just a year ago, in January, Chuck Schumer that said that was completely inappropriate to ask a Supreme Court justice any opinion that he might give on a case. So the flip-flop here...
It is become a completely political exercise at this point. That's not to anybody's benefit, but that's what's happened.
Well, how do you? This
Well, I'll
was,
tell you where it
this was
started.
Schumer.
I'll tell you where it started. It started. I'll take the blame
with
for the
Bork.
Democrats. It started with the Bork decision.
With Bork.
Okay, that's where it started.
It started
It's
with
gone
Ted
downhill
Kennedy.
from there. It's gotten worse.
It was Ted Kennedy and Bork, and they took a man who was actually. People look back on it and say Bork was probably one of the most qualified people that has ever been nominated to the Supreme Court in the history of our country, and they viciously destroyed him.
Look what they're already doing to this one.
Well, and the rule that they're violating now is the Ginsburg rule. It's actually the most liberal member of the court's rule that they shouldn't answer these questions.
There is no way really to justify on a principled basis the way we have treated Supreme Court nominees for the last 40 years. You can't do it. And that goes against both parties.
Say that again. Explain to me what you're trying to say.
Well, the rule used to be relatively simple. It was, one, were they qualified?
Yeah.
And two, is there some moral or ethical lapse in their background that might disqualify them? Under the theory that the Supreme Court has to have credibility in its decisions. And that was all we did.
Well, let me ask this question.
And we've gotten completely away from that.
Why are the Democrats so opposed to everything? It doesn't matter what. They're opposed to it. They're going to stick together. They're opposed to it. They're opposed to it. It didn't used to be that way, Franklin. What's changed?
Well, it's certainly not just a Democratic thing.
Well, Franklin, for example, Schumer and all of them voted to build the wall in 2007.
Mm-hmm.
They all voted for that. And yet they've never provided funding for it. And now, if we say we're for the wall, they call us racist. How do men and women who voted to do something now say
I know
it's
we've had this
racist?
argument before, but Schumer has gone on record as saying that he personally offered Donald Trump a blank check for his wall if he passed the Dreamer legislation. And the president accepted it, and then your party went crazy, and the next day he pulled it.
Franklin,
that's what happened.
Trump offered 1.8 million people a path to citizenship, more than Obama had ever even thought about.
And your party opposed that too.
No, but
yes,
he offered it, and the Democrats wouldn't accept it.
There are deals to be made.
But on
you
top
just
of the
have
fact
to be
that you
willing
had
to
everything
take
for
some
2
of the bad
years,
medicine
and you
too.
fixed nothing. You could have fixed the Dreamers when Obama first
we
went
didn't
in.
have 60 votes. We couldn't get a single Republican vote.
Frankly,
not one.
The rules hadn't been butchered at that point
you
yet.
had to-
It was Harry Reid that butchered the rules.
That only dealt with judicial nominees, not with regular legislation.
Franklin, you all could have passed it.
Could not. Could not.
But you didn't even try. All right, look, if you had tried and we voted it down, I'd give you that. But I'm not going to give you that when you didn't even bring the legislation to the floor.
Right now, these are facts. It's not even up for debate. There's easily a majority.
Always up for debate.
Of folks that would vote for legislation that was supported by the first George Bush, by Ronald Reagan, by Clinton, by Obama, by George W. Bush. That can't get a vote right now.
What did Obama do to Marco Rubio's plan? He stabbed it in the back over the weekend. Rubio was actually putting a plan together like you're talking about. Now, a lot of us conservatives probably wouldn't have liked it, but he was putting it together in a good faith effort, and President Obama stabbed him in the back, pulled the table out from under
John, what did I just say?
Well,
it's bad.
But you're the party claiming that you have the immigrants back.
No, here's what I'm saying.
And you all are the ones that have cut their throats the most.
Here's what I'm saying to you. There is a majority out there of citizens, clearly. It's like 70% in every poll.
Yeah, but
who
that's
clearly
also
would
how you
support
phrase
this.
The wording in the poll, Franklin.
No, it's not. It's
It
not.
is.
And it doesn't take a lot of effort to realize that there's a substantial issue here. There's substantial parts of the United States economy, whether we like it or not, that are being supported on the back of illegal immigrants.
Well,
we ought to fix the system so we can have people come in and out legally who then go back.
What do you think Trump's trying to do?
I don't see any evidence to support
Diane
that.
Black.
You don't think he's trying to fix this?
Franklin,
He hasn't put forth any kind
E-Verify.
of guest worker program or anything like that.
Well, we've got to establish a legal way for them to come in. Do we have a legal way?
Where that's how these industries happen. And we don't have people lined up to do those jobs otherwise. We don't.
Franklin, Diane Black just introduced a bill that would make crossing the border illegally a felony. And
Okay.
the point of that is to be a bigger deterrent
It's not
to people.
now, it's a misdemeanor.
It's a misdemeanor. And she said, but here's what happens if it's a felony. If you're convicted of that and you turn around later and you try to enter the country legally, you can't get a green card because you've been convicted of a felony. So what it tells those people is if you want to come, you've got to come legally. But it also requires E-Verify, and it goes after the employers as well.
Okay.
So Diane is got a plan here.
Is it a felony for the employers if they're hiring people? Who are illegal?
I don't know.
It
I
ought
would
to
have
be.
see.
Otherwise, I think it's rank hypocrisy.
Where would you be for it if it was?
No, I don't think it should be a felony for that.
Okay. Well,
So, no,
are you
I
for
don't.
this plan the way she's got it then?
No, he doesn't want it to be
I
a
don't
felony.
want it to be a felony.
Well, Franklin, what
Because I think-
discourages people more? I mean, her point is not that we don't actually want to convict people.
What
of a
discourages them?
felony.
Well, first of all, let's figure out why they're coming here. The majority of the people you're talking about.
What
Why
would
is
you
that?
do to fix this problem, Franklin? Let me just
Well, I
ask a
will
simple
say that
question.
since 76% of them that come here with children are on our welfare program, some of them are coming here for the welfare.
What would you do to fix this program, Franklin?
Which portion are you talking about? There's
Illegals coming to America.
Okay.
Illegals coming to America. How would you fix that?
Well, we got two parts of that. We have people who are coming here for purely economic reasons.
Illegally?
The welfare.
Sure.
Well,
no, not
I'm
welfare.
talking
They
about
want jobs.
how would you stop people coming illegally to America?
Well, what I would do, first of all, is recognize and have a serious debate about why they're coming here. And the fact that a lot of Americans are inviting them here because it's good business for them.
Well, let me say this. There's visas. We have a way for these
The
people.
system's
Here.
broken. That's
Huh?
the problem.
We allow 1 million legal immigrants a year to come into the country.
Actually,
That's a lot of people.
Actually, the president has already reduced by over 50% the visa program since he took office. And he's proposing reducing it by another 50% next year.
Well, what do you think you ought to do to try to back him?
Why would we want to do that?
What are you going to do to fix this program of illegals coming into our country?
We need a system where there is a clear visa program or guest worker program, they call it, so that people can come in and out under that program, first of all.
Well, do you think Trump is pretty smart to reduce that amount so he can get your side to agree with him so he can put that back in place?
Why would I think that that's what he wants to do? He said nothing.
I think
He hasn't said anything along those
Because
lines.
here's the reason, Franklin.
Give up
Some
everything.
people go through life looking for the best, and Democrats go through life looking for the worst. That's why you wouldn't think that.
The second part of it is you've got a second group, and most of them are not coming from Mexico, and that's the reason this debate gets so crazy. The overwhelming number of people coming from Mexico are coming for work purposes only. That's the fact.
California
okay?
fruit pickers.
Not just that, Alabama,
Okay.
Georgia,
Well, they can,
all kinds of places.
I've got friends that are farmers. They have visas. They get them in here through the visa program.
Some do, some don't.
Well,
are you going to prosecute those friends if they don't?
But the point, Franklin, is we have a program for that to do it legally.
Right.
And if there's a problem with it, we can work on
What?
that. That has
Well,
nothing
what's
to
the
do with the
problem?
illegal
Just do
part.
it.
The problem is you don't have a door on your house.
You gotta
That's
stop
the
it.
problem.
Do it. Everybody says.
what would you do to stop illegals coming to America?
What do you do to
Create
keep
a
someone from
comprehensive program
robbing
that
your
covers all
house?
these
Oh, I
things.
don't know. You put a door on your house.
Okay.
With a lock.
Okay.
And may I pose a question? Would you be for the abolition of ICE?
Like the rest of your party
No.
is calling for.
First of all, the rest of the party isn't calling for
The
it.
ascendant part of your party is.
The answer is no, although clearly we need to take a hard look at the
Jay
way ICE
Johnson,
operates.
Obama's Homeland Security Secretary, said that was an absolute disaster to be talking about abolishing ICE. By the way, apparently, if a Republican said abolish ICE, he would be lambasted for not caring about white slavery, not caring about sex trafficking. But the Democrats can say it, and apparently it's fine.
What's wrong with us?
Oh, I think the way that they're operating in some communities is probably counterproductive.
How are they operating in some areas that would be counterproductive? I don't understand.
You
what
know, the
mean.
non-citizen illegal communities.
Oh, where they actually go in there and take some people and arrest them?
It's kind of like the way the police are non-productive in the, organized crime community.
Well, suggesting that every person who came here just to try to work or improve their family's life is somehow some thug or murderer is part of the problem, John.
Franklin? Illegal is illegal. What part of the word illegal do you not agree with?
That's right, John. Illegal is illegal.
Illegal is illegal.
And that's right. And going 56 miles an hour is a crime also in a 55-mile-an-hour zone, and so is going 95. Do we treat them the same? Of course not.
Should President Trump obey the law?
Presumably.
Presumably. Should he obey the law?
That was a fair comment on his part, because he certainly didn't expect Obama to obey the law. So that was a fair
But should
comment.
President Trump obey the laws?
Sure.
Well, what's this zero tolerance problem?
That would be enforcing the law.
That would be enforcing the law, would it not? What's
depends.
wrong with that?
It depends. We have more than one law involved there.
Well, could
we
Congress
have a
do-
refugee population that comes under a different law. So if you do zero tolerance there, you're not actually enforcing
A
the
law is a
In
law.
fact, you're violating
Law
it.
is a law, Franklin. It's written by Congress.
That's right.
Could
And it
Congress
was
fix
written
these
by the
problems?
Democrats.
Could Congress fix some of these problems?
Possibly.
Well, I mean, I don't know what we
Look,
why
look,
we
let
should
me say
expect the
this. Let me
president
say
not to
this.
follow the law
Let me
as the
say
law
this.
is
It's
written.
like people
Let me say
locally
this.
that got
Hold on,
mad
hold
at a
on,
local
hold on.
sheriff
You
for
talk about-
raiding
hold on.
their poker machines.
You talk about democratic obstructionism a minute ago. There is no democratic obstructionism preventing the House of Representatives from passing anything they
They've
want.
passed a lot of things, and
They
the
haven't
Democrats
passed
in the
this.
Senate
Pass
won't
the
let it
bill.
through. They've passed
And
all
then
kinds
argue
of bills.
about the
I brought
Democrats.
that into you before, Franklin. They've passed hundreds of bills, and the Democrat Senate kills it. It has to pass both
Pass
houses.
a comprehensive immigration bill and send it to the Senate.
It has to pass both houses, Franklin.
That's right. But you haven't been able to pass one out of the
Well,
House.
actually,
and the
here's
truth
what's
is-
really
here's
interesting.
The truth. The truth is your party does not
All right,
agree
wait
with
a minute. I'm
itself
glad
about
you
what
brought
to
that
do
up.
right
So
now.
let me make sure I understand you right. So when the second immigration bill came up that lost all of the conservative Republican votes, how many moderate Democrat votes did it pick up? None. Not a single Democrat supported it. So there was a bill that if the Democrats had been bipartisan, all they had to do was vote with the moderate Republicans, and
I'm
that.
just-
Wait a
I'm
minute.
just
Would
tired
that
of
bill
hearing-
have passed out of the House if Democrat moderates had come over and supported it? Yes or no?
It would have required 30 or 40, as I recall.
Do you think you all could have had 30 or 40 moderate Democrats that if they were seriously interested in immigration reform could have voted for that? Not a single one did. So don't dare talk to me about we need to fix something.
No,
it's your
that's not
people
what
that
I
need
said
to
at
fix
all.
something.
What I said is, don't tell me it's democratic obstructionism.
I just proved
if you've
it
got
was.
if
I
you've got an
just
absolute
proved to
majority.
you- I just proved to you
No,
that
you didn't prove
it would
anything.
have passed if your people had come over and supported
You didn't
it.
prove anything, John.
If your people
The
had
answer
supported it, it
answer
would have
is your party doesn't agree with itself about what to do.
But Franklin,
so don't blame
what's
me.
the definition of bipartisanship? Both sides come together. You
That
don't
would
get
require-
100%
that
of
would
either
require you
side.
to give something to
You
the other
gave
side.
nothing. You gave nothing. Democrats
What did you
gave
give
not
those moderates?
Democrats gave
What did
not
you?
a single
The
vote.
Democrats weren't even allowed to participate in
They
crafting
could
that
vote.
bill.
They could have voted, and
Would they
they
have been able to?
They didn't vote.
I mean, that's one of the
Didn't vote.
that's one of the issues
All
that
your
the
immigrants out
Republicans
there,
have been complaining
pay
about.
attention. The
That their
Democrats
own leader
didn't
won't
vote
allow
for your
amendments.
bill. Didn't vote for you.
True or false, John? The House Freedom Caucus's #1 complaint is that the Speaker of the House, who's a Republican, won't allow amendments on the floor.
I don't expect universal support for everything. But my point is,
You
Franklin,
won't allow
when
debate or amendment.
When the Freedom Caucus left that vote, all you people had to do was some of your moderate Democrats could have crossed over, and that bill would have passed
Not
the
if
House.
we can't
The
debate
reason-
it and amend
The
it.
reason it failed is because your people wouldn't come over.
The reason
So
it
you all
failed
you're
is
the people that
because
don't care about
Paul
the immigrants.
Ryan won't allow amendments
Don't-
because he
your
knows
people
if he
don't care
did,
about the immigrant.
a bill would have passed. And he didn't want a bill to pass.
A bill could have passed.
He
with
didn't
a little
want it.
Democrat support, and your people wouldn't
Couldn't
give it.
have done it.
Did it get a single Democrat vote? A
Wouldn't-
single vote.
Would not unless
Did it get a
regular order was
single
allowed.
Democrat
And you know
vote?
it.
Did it get a single Democrat
You
vote?
know why, too?
You won't answer, will you?
I
Did it
just
get a
did
single
answer it.
Democrat vote?
I just answered because
That's how reasonable the
bill you
Democrats
wanted
are,
is
folks.
Our bill or no bill
Not
at all.
one Democrat would come over and support it.
Let me change the subject just a moment. A Supreme Court judge, Brett Kavanaugh.
Mhm.
Was he a good pick? Bad pick?
On paper, he's certainly qualified. As I said, it's a pointless discussion to talk about that now. It's a purely political exercise. I think they've got the votes to pass him. I think he will pass. I think it'll be an ugly display, but it'll happen.
Why would the Democrats and Democrats put this on as such an ugly display when they know they're not going to win?
Because of this stupid hypocritical thing that happened with Garland. Didn't have anything to do with his
Franklin.
his qualifications.
Franklin.
Hold on, let me finish. Here's the underlying facts about this. You know why Merrick Garland got picked? He wasn't the most liberal judge that Obama could have picked. He got picked because Orrin Hatch urged him to pick him because he was a centrist that he thought the Republicans could support. Not one of them did.
Franklin, how many Republicans attacked Merrick Garland's children?
I'm not defending anybody
Your
here, John.
people yesterday began
I'm not
attacking
defending
Brett
anybody.
Kavanaugh's children.
I'm not defending anybody. I
You want me
just
to
said
read
it
you
was
the
going to be
tweets about his two little girls?
Yeah, let's hear it.
From
Yeah,
major
let's hear it.
Democrats?
Let's hear it.
Let me let William read it since I didn't bring my reading glasses.
All right. So this is from David Rothschild. Kavanaugh's lengthy stories about liking his wife and daughter does not make it any better when he casts a deciding vote to gut women's health care. Actually makes it worse. Kind of seems like something Ted Kennedy would have said about Bork. Brett Kavanaugh.
That was an attack on his children?
If we even mention a Democrat's children, we've attacked them.
This is from Sarah Lawns. I believe that's how you say
Who
it.
are these people, first of all?
All Democrat operatives. They're former Clinton people. They're Democrat glitterazzi.
Says Brett Kavanaugh posing with his wife and daughter, knowing full well that he doesn't care about their bodily autonomy. And then there's several
That's
more.
attacking them.
Franklin, they're little girls who were out on a podium. Do you remember the Senate staffer who said Malia and Sasha weren't dressing nice enough? They drummed her out of a job and ran her back to Iowa or wherever she came from for simply mentioning that they weren't dressing nice enough. And then you're going to sit here and go,
I'm sorry,
well,
I didn't hear a single comment about the girls.
Oh, okay. I guess so. As long as they don't say, I hope they die, you're okay with them being drug into this.
I don't think
Once
they
again,
were drug into
liberal
it.
hypocrisy.
So here's another one that we have. Marin, I want to say is how you say that. Those two daughters of Kavanaugh's have the Stockholm Syndrome look. I wonder why.
So he's
this person was inappropriate.
This person is saying that their dad has kidnapped and brainwashed them.
Look, John.
That's
I'm
your
not
side,
go-
Franklin.
I
That's your people. Own it.
My people.
Own it.
Okay, then you got to own the pedophile running for Congress over in North Carolina, the outright white supremacist running for Congress
I don't
in
know,
Illinois.
Franklin.
Do you own
Barney
them, John?
Franks was an admitted pedophile, and y'all put him on
Okay, we own him.
as
You're
chairman
gonna have
of
to
the
pony up to
Ethics
it.
Committee. He
You're
was
gonna
the
have to own it, too.
top-ranking Democrat on the Ethics Committee.
You got to own the fact that all the white supremacists
I'm
are running as
Barney
Republicans.
Franks.
You
I
own
like
them,
little
John?
boys. Let me be
You own
chairman
them?
of the Ethics
Do
Committee.
you own them, John?
And that was 25 years ago.
This is today we're talking about.
Well, that's my point. Y'all were doing it 25 years ago.
So you get a free pass is
No.
what you're saying. This is what drives me crazy with this. I'll take my bad medicine.
When did
The day
throw
you
Barney
start.
Franks out of your caucus?
I don't get to vote for
When
Barney
did you
Franks.
run him out?
He's not
Never.
in my
He
district.
retired when he wanted to.
You know who's in my district? A guy who got his mistress to have 2 abortions and then told me what a family values guy is. That's who's in my district.
You mean a guy that didn't live a perfect
Which you went
life
out and
before-
said, you
the
know
guy
what?
who didn't
He
live
votes
a
pretty
perfect
well for the
life
things we want.
Before he ran?
This is the
So
same,
apparently
the
you don't
same
believe in
people who are now
forgiveness either.
saying, I don't really support any of the things
So
that the
you don't
president's
believe in
done in
the
his
idea of
personal
forgiveness.
life,
You don't
but
believe in the
he's
idea
going
of
to vote
making
the
a
way we
mistake
want him
and
to.
learning from it.
Come on. At some point, just say you don't care about the principles. All you care about's the party.
Well, I'm going to give you something I think you've been looking for, Franklin.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
What would that be?
I think Putin and Trump are going to have some collusion this week.
I think you're right. Since the president's already said he's going to kick translators and any people out of the meeting, so it's just the two of the buddies.
Well, Franklin, at least we know he's having the meeting. Obama met in secret with the Iranian mullahs. They had secret meetings, and matter of fact, they had secret deals that to this day we still haven't seen.
Oh, golly.
By the way, it's okay. Democratic lawmakers
Hey,
and the Iranian mullahs agree that the Jews control the web.
How's that North Korea thing going this week, John?
Well, frankly, it's a process. We'll see how
It's
it
a
works
process.
I think when Trump,
How did it go for the last?
I think when Putin and Trump have collusion, it'll go a lot better.
This week they called the American president gangsters.
That's all right. Frankly,
That's all
is there
right.
anything wrong with this?
That's all right.
Is there anything wrong? Is there anything wrong with standing up for tariffs that they're not paying?
Huh?
Is there anything
They're
wrong
not
with standing up?
tariffs, they're not paying.
I mean, is there anything wrong with us trying to make things equal in this world? Is that a better way for me to put
Unless
it?
you're doing it through socialism, Franklin doesn't agree with it.
In other words, everybody has a brownie, right?
Well, because it's working so well in Venezuela.
Well,
so
let's
elect congressmen
just,
from New York who are open
Look,
socialists.
John, why don't you just take it to its natural state?
Well, why don't
Let's
we
get rid of the
you're gonna
police
take
department and the
socialism
fire
to its
department.
natural state.
That's socialism.
Socialism murdered 100 million people last century.
Which is it
Franklin.
going to be, John? Are you anti-socialism or just partially
See, that's how
socialism?
they do this. So
No, it's just true. You say this stuff
Franklin,
like it's
this
meaningless.
woman is an admitted socialist, and she's the darling of your party. Matter of fact, Tom Perez, your chairman, actually said she's the future of the Democratic Party. She's an avowed socialist. So, folks, when you look at Phil Bredesen this fall, that's what you're looking at, the party of socialism.
Put your principles where your mouth is, John. Go for
I
it.
will.
For
I'm
all of
against
it.
socialism.
Opposed to the police
I'm against
department. Opposed
socialism.
to the fire department.
See, you talk about
Opposed
extremism.
to the air
Listen
traffic
to it.
control
That's
system.
extremism,
It's
folks.
socialism.
That's extremism.
Next question, we got to go. What do you think about Trump's new Space Force?
Love it.
Okay. What's interesting about it is none of our military seems to be favoring for it. I don't know why that is, but you'd have to say that. You guys are the ones who've told me for years we need to listen to the generals.
I want to say it one more time. I think Trump's doing a great job, and we'll see you next week. We've got to go now.
Well, I hope our guests will come back again.
Peggy Sue Denham, thanks
I
for
do
coming.
appreciate them
William
coming.
Ogle, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we're out of here.
I miss the